of doves over their little ones. So are the wings of the Spirit resting over my heart, like a child who leaps in the mother's womb. My heart is refreshed and awakens in joy. I trusted and I rested, for faithful is the one, faithful is the one in whom my soul has trusted. The Spirit is within me, and He cannot die, for He is life. He is life, immortal life embraced me and kissed me with light, for He is life. He is life. The Lord has blessed me greatly. My head is with Him above. No dagger can divide me. No sword can break His love. Before destruction comes, my soul is set aside. I have been placed forever on His immortal side. I trusted and I rested, Wings of the Spirit are over my heart. Immortal life embraced me, and I am alive. Hallelujah, Blessed are you, living waters, flowing from the throne of light. You are mercy, like a river. You are fire within the night. You refresh the weary spirit. You revive the broken soul. Where your holy waters enter, every desert blooms with gold. We lift our eyes, we lift our song. The river is holy, the Lord is strong. But blessed are you, living waters, river of God, flow over me. Blessed are you, holy fountain, wash my heart and set me free. From the throne, from the Lamb, from the fire of God you stream. Blessed are you, living waters, river of life, awaken me. No darkness can resist your glory. No shadow can remain the same. When the waters rise in power, they carry heaven's holy name. You are healing for the nations. You are life beneath the tree. living waters flow. I hear a sound beyond the silence, like a whisper in the flame. Something holy moves around me. Heaven is calling my name. Through the shadows, through the trembling, through the places I have prayed, there is light above the valley, there is mercy on the way. I lift my eyes, I lift my heart. The night is fading, the dawn will start. Heaven is calling, calling me higher. Holy fire, burn in my soul. Heaven is calling, calling me closer. Living water,
Today we will be talking about the stillness behind the veil, when the bride is waiting in glory before the wedding. Beloved, there is a stillness that comes before fear, and there is a stillness that comes after glory. There is a silence that feels like wilderness, and there is a silence that feels like heaven. There is a waiting that comes from not yet knowing where you belong, and there is a waiting that comes after you have already been received. And today, we are not speaking about the bride's stillness while she is still being tested on earth. We are not speaking about the difficult preparation in the wilderness. We are not speaking about the struggle to become ready while the world is shaking around her. Today, we are speaking of another stillness, the stillness behind the veil, the stillness after arrival, the stillness of the bride who is no longer striving to enter because she has entered. In the last teaching, we stood before the golden veil, the radiant boundary of Shekinah glory around what God has brought near. But today, we are not standing outside the veil anymore. Today, we are listening to the holy hush behind it, the stillness of the bride after arrival, the stillness of one who is no longer striving to enter because she has entered. This is not emptiness. This is fullness under holy order. This is not loneliness. This is the quiet of a chamber filled with heavenly family, children of the exile, attendance, joy, and reverence. This is not a sorrowful delay. This is the pause before the appointed ceremony. This is not the silence of abandonment. This is the silence of sacred nearness. Because when the bride is behind the veil, she is not outside the promise. She is inside the keeping of God. She is not wondering if she belongs. She has already been received. She is not fighting the shadow. The shadow is outside the boundary of glory. She is not waiting as one forgotten. She is waiting as one honored. And this is the mystery before us today. What happens after the bride has crossed the threshold? What happens after the wilderness has done its work? What happens after the oil has been guarded, the heart has been prepared, the voice has been learned, and the bride has been brought into the king's nearness? What kind of stillness fills the chamber before the wedding? That is where we are going today. Not into fear, not into striving, not into repetition, but into the holy hush behind the veil. A different moment behind the veil. Beloved, before we continue, I want to make this distinction clear. This teaching is not happening at the same time as the last one. In the golden veil, we were looking at the veil itself, the radiant boundary of Shekinah glory, the sacred covering, the line between the outer shadow and the inner place of God's keeping. But today, in the stillness behind the veil, we have moved into another moment. We are no longer only looking at the veil from the outside. We are now speaking of what happens after the bride has already crossed the threshold. She has already been transferred. She has already entered the heavenly sealed room. She is no longer in the earthly wilderness of preparation. She is no longer standing before the veil as one waiting to enter. She is behind the veil now, in the heavenly chamber, in the holy hush after arrival. So the atmosphere is different. The time is different. The place is different. The bride's condition is different. The golden veil revealed the boundary. The stillness behind the veil reveals the life within that boundary. The golden veil showed what guards the chamber. The stillness behind the veil shows how the bride waits once she has been received. That is why this teaching must feel softer, quieter, more interior, and more filled with holy peace. We are no longer speaking mainly of the veil as protection. We are speaking of the bride already inside the glory, waiting in joy before the wedding ceremony. The stillness after arrival. Beloved, there is a great difference between waiting outside and waiting inside. When someone waits outside, the heart may still wonder, will the door open? Will I be received? Will the promise come? Will I be remembered? But when someone waits inside, the nature of waiting changes. The bride, behind the veil, is not waiting to know whether she belongs. She is waiting because she has already been brought near. She is not outside, knocking in uncertainty. She is inside, resting in honor. She is not pressing against the door. She is dwelling within the chamber. This is why we must understand the stillness behind the veil differently from earthly waiting. On earth, waiting can feel like endurance. Behind the veil, waiting becomes reverence. On earth, waiting can feel like separation. Behind the veil, waiting becomes nearness. On earth, waiting can feel like preparation through pressure. Behind the veil, waiting becomes preparation through joy. On earth, the bride learned to be still while the world pulled at her. She learned obedience while voices competed for her attention. She learned oil while the night was long. She learned peace while the outer atmosphere was unstable. But behind the veil, the atmosphere is different. The bride is not being pulled by the world anymore. She is not being shaped by the noise anymore. She is not proving her readiness anymore. She has crossed into the place where readiness is honored. That is why this stillness is so holy. It is the stillness of one who has arrived, but has not yet been publicly unveiled. It is the stillness of one who is near, but still waiting for the appointed moment. It is the stillness of one who has been received into joy, but the ceremony has not yet unfolded in its fullness. And this gives us a beautiful key. The bride is not silent because there is nothing happening. She is silent because heaven is full. She is silent because the atmosphere is weighty. She is silent because joy has become reverent. She is silent because the chamber is not ordinary. There are moments when the soul does not need many words. There are moments when worship becomes quiet because the presence is too near to treat casually. There are moments when the bride does not need to explain herself, defend herself, or announce herself. She simply remains where she has been received. That is the stillness after arrival. Don't you know, stillness is fullness under holy order. Now we come to the central line of this teaching. Stillness is not emptiness, it is fullness under holy order. This is very important because people often think stillness means nothing is happening. But in the presence of God, stillness can be one of the deepest signs that everything is in its appointed place. When a house is in disorder, there is noise. When a soul is unsettled, there is noise. When fear is ruling, there is noise. When striving is still alive, there is noise. But when holy order fills a place, there can be stillness, not because the place is empty, because everything has come under peace. Behind the veil, stillness is not the absence of life. It is life resting in divine order. It is joy without chaos. It is celebration without confusion. It is preparation without anxiety. It is nearness without disorder. This is very different from the stillness of the wilderness. In the wilderness, stillness may be learned through surrender. Behind the veil, the stillness is the atmosphere of surrender fulfilled. In the wilderness, stillness may require the bride to quiet fear. Behind the veil, fear has no authority in the chamber. In the wilderness, stillness may come through discipline. Behind the veil, stillness becomes the natural breath of glory. This is why the bride behind the veil is not restless. She does not need to force what only the king can reveal. She does not need to hurry the ceremony. She does not need to prove that she has been chosen. She does not need to push open the next door. The bride behind the veil has learned the order of love. Love does not rush what is holy. Love does not break sacred timing. Love does not turn the chamber into a place of impatience. Love waits because love trusts the bridegroom. And this is what makes the stillness beautiful. It is not passive, it is not empty, it is not weak, it is full of trust, full of joy, full of reverence, full of expectation, full of the presence of God. Stillness behind the veil is the chamber breathing in the rhythm of heaven. Nothing is frantic, nothing is forced, nothing is exposed before the appointed time. The bride is not waiting in lack, she is waiting in fullness. The bride no longer strives to enter this layer is very important for keeping the teaching clean. Behind the veil, the bride is no longer striving to enter. She has entered. She is no longer standing at the threshold wondering if she will be accepted. She has been received. She is no longer trying to become what heaven will recognize. Heaven has recognized what God has formed in her. This is where the atmosphere changes completely. On earth, the bride was prepared. Behind the veil, the bride is welcomed. On earth, the bride learned obedience. Behind the veil, obedience rests in joy. On earth, the bride guarded the oil. Behind the veil, the lamp is already burning. On earth, the bride learned to hear the voice of the beloved. Behind the veil, that voice fills the chamber. This is why we should not describe this heavenly stillness as though the bride is still in the same struggle she had on earth. She is not still fighting fear in the same way. She is not still being purified from the noise of the world in the same way. She is not still being trained in the same wilderness pressure. That stage has done its work. The bride has crossed over. The bride has been transformed into her restored nature. The bride has entered the king's heavenly nearness. And now, the stillness is not about striving toward readiness. It is about resting in readiness. This is a powerful shift. Many people know how to talk about preparation, but they do not know how to talk about reception. They know how to talk about being tested, but not about being welcomed. They know how to talk about the wilderness, but not about the chamber of joy. They know how to talk about oil as something guarded in the night, but not about oil as something already burning in the presence of the king. But the bride's story does not end with preparation. Preparation leads somewhere. Oil leads somewhere. Stillness leads somewhere. Obedience leads somewhere. The wilderness leads to the chamber. The chamber leads to the veil. And behind the veil, the bride learns a new kind of rest. The rest of one who is no longer outside. The rest of one who has entered the king's house. The rest of one who does not need to strive for access, because access has been given. This is why the stillness behind the veil is full of dignity. The bride is not restless. She is not anxious. She is not scrambling to prepare at the last moment. She is not trying to borrow oil. She is not trying to repair what was neglected. She is already in the place of readiness. And because she is ready, she can be still. The children of the exile and the heavenly family. Now we must look at the atmosphere behind the veil, because the bride is not alone. Behind the veil is not emptiness. Behind the veil is not isolation. Behind the veil is not a cold room where the bride waits by herself. Behind the veil is a heavenly gathering. There are the children of the exile. There are attendants. There are bridesmaids. There is a heavenly family. There is reverent joy. There is the sense that exile is ending, that the long sorrow is giving way to reunion, that the scattered are being gathered near the mystery of the King. This is very important because the heavenly chamber is no longer the wilderness. In the wilderness, the bride may have felt separated from the world. Behind the veil, she is not separated into loneliness. She is gathered into a family. The children of the exile are not the bride herself. We must keep that clear. They are the ones who accompany, attend, witness, and rejoice near the ceremony. They belong to the bridal company, the gathered ones who are brought near to the joy of the appointed hour. And this gives the stillness a different sound. It is not a lonely silence. It is the hush of a family gathered before a holy moment. It is the quiet before a ceremony. It is the reverence of those who know that heaven has reached an appointed hour. This is the kind of stillness that can exist even in a room full of joy, because true joy does not always shout. Sometimes joy becomes quiet because the moment is too sacred. Sometimes joy lowers its voice because the King is near. Sometimes celebration becomes reverence because the mystery is about to unfold. So behind the veil, the bride is surrounded. She is not alone with fear. She is not alone with uncertainty. She is among the gathered ones. She is among those who understand the hour. She is among the children of the exile who have been brought near to witness the joy of the King's house. And the heavenly family is present. The atmosphere is not earthly pressure. It is heavenly recognition. The bride is not standing before strangers. She is standing among those who belong to the house. And this matters because the wedding mystery is not only about one event. It is about household, family, order, inheritance, and joy. The bride does not enter the chamber as one disconnected. She enters into the life of the King's house. She enters into the family order of heaven. She enters into the place where the children of the exile are no longer wandering outside the mystery, but gathered near the joy of fulfillment. This is why the stillness behind the veil is full. It is full of presence, full of family, full of expectation, full of recognition, full of sacred joy. Oil already burning. Now, we must speak carefully about oil. We are not going to repeat the full teaching of the virgins and the lamps. That belongs to another layer. But we must touch the oil gently here, because behind the veil, the oil is no longer a question of last-minute readiness. Behind the veil, the oil is already burning. This is a beautiful distinction. On earth, the bride learned to guard oil. On earth, she learned not to waste oil on fear. On earth, she learned that oil cannot be borrowed at the last moment. On earth, she learned the difference between outward appearance and inward readiness. But behind the veil, the oil has become the atmosphere of readiness. The lamp is alive. The flame is steady. The bride is not searching for oil. She is standing in the light of what has already been formed within her. This is why there is peace behind the veil. There is no pang. There is no last-minute scrambling. There is no anxious preparation. There is no restless question of whether the lamp will endure. The oil is already there. The flame is already burning. The bride is already in the place where readiness has been received. And this is important for the people who are listening because many imagine preparation only as pressure. They think readiness means always being afraid that they are not ready enough. But true readiness eventually produces peace. If readiness never becomes peace, then fear is still pretending to be preparation. Holy preparation leads the bride into rest. It does not leave her in endless panic. It does not keep her forever questioning whether God will receive her. It does not keep her forever outside the door. The purpose of readiness is entrance. The purpose of oil is light. The purpose of the lamp is to burn. So behind the veil, the oil is no longer being explained. It is shining. The bride is no longer talking about readiness. She is resting in it. The flame is no longer threatened by the winds outside because the bride is inside the glory boundary. Behind the veil, the oil is not fear. It is not urgency. It is not spiritual performance. It is the quiet life of the Spirit burning steadily in the presence of the King. And that flame helps us understand the stillness. The bride is still, but her lamp is not dead. The chamber is quiet, but it is not empty. The atmosphere is hushed, but it is full of light. This is the stillness of oil already burning. Let's talk about the holy hush before the wedding. The stillness behind the veil is the holy hush before the wedding. Not the ceremony itself yet, not the public celebration yet, not the marriage supper yet, not the fullness after the war yet. This is the reverent pause before the appointed moment, and this pause matters. In every sacred order, there are moments that come before the visible action. There is a quiet before procession. There is a hush before the door opens. There is a stillness before the music rises. There is a breath before the King reveals what has been prepared. The bride behind the veil is in that holy pause. She is not inactive. She is held. She is not delayed by confusion. She is kept by timing. She is not waiting because heaven is unsure. She is waiting because sacred things move by appointed order. The wedding ceremony belongs to its appointed moment. The unveiling belongs to its appointed moment. The public manifestation belongs to its appointed moment. The marriage supper belongs to its appointed moment. And behind the veil, the bride does not force the order. She rests within it. This is why stillness behind the veil is so powerful. It teaches us that even joy has order, even celebration has timing, even nearness has reverence, even glory has sequence. Heaven does not move in panic. Heaven does not rush sacred things. Heaven does not expose mysteries before the hour. Heaven does not let the outer war determine the inner ceremony. This is very important. While the earth may pass through shaking, heaven is not shaken. While the nations may rage, the king's house is not confused. While the outside world may not understand what God has gathered, the bride is still kept in heavenly order. Behind the veil, the bride waits in the order of heaven. And this is the hush we are speaking about. The hush of joy that does not need to explain itself. The hush of glory that does not need to defend itself. The hush of readiness that does not need to strive anymore. The hush of family gathered before covenant joy. The hush of oil already burning. The hush of the bride who knows that the next movement belongs to the king. So we stop here at the threshold. We do not enter fully into the wedding ceremony in this teaching because that is another mystery. Today we are listening to the stillness before it, the stillness behind the veil, the fullness under holy order, the holy hush before the appointed moment. The bride has entered. The oil is burning. The children of the exile are near. The heavenly family is gathered. The veil is radiant. The chamber is full. And the bride waits in glory, not because she is uncertain, but because heaven knows the appointed time. Now we must add another layer. The holy hush does not begin only after the bride is already seated in the chamber. There is a hush that begins at the moment of transfer. There is a sacred silence when the bride is taken from one realm into another, when the earthly season has completed its work, when the wilderness has finished its preparation, when the oil has been guarded, when the appointed hour arrives and heaven receives what earth can no longer hold. This is not the silence of fear. This is not the silence of abandonment. This is not the silence of confusion. It is the silence of transition, the hush of transfer. Because there are moments so sacred that they cannot be explained while they are happening. There are moments when heaven moves and the earth does not fully understand what has taken place. There are moments when God gathers what belongs to him so quietly, so sovereignly, so completely, that the outer world may only feel that something has shifted, but heaven knows what has occurred. The bride has been transferred. She has crossed the boundary. She has moved from earthly preparation into heavenly reception. She has moved from the sealed place of formation into the sealed room of joy. She has moved from being guarded in the wilderness into being received behind the golden veil. And in that moment, there is a hush, not because nothing is happening, because something too holy is happening. The transfer is not noisy in the way the world expects. It is not controlled by human announcement. It is not explained by earthly systems. It is not submitted to the understanding of those outside the mystery. It belongs to the king. The same king who prepared her knows how to receive her. The same king who guarded her oil knows how to bring her lamp into the chamber. The same king who kept her through the wilderness knows how to bring her behind the veil. And when that transfer happens, the hush is the sign that the movement is sacred. The bride is not being lost. She is being received. She is not disappearing into emptiness. She is crossing into glory. She is not being removed from the promise. She is entering the place where the promise becomes joy. This is why the transfer must not be spoken of as fear. It is not a moment of terror for the bride. It is a moment of fulfillment. It is the answer to preparation. It is the answer to oil. It is the answer to obedience. It is the answer to the long waiting of the wilderness. The earthly chamber prepared her heart. The heavenly chamber receives her person. The wilderness separated her from the noise. The golden veil surrounds her with radiance. And the moment between them is holy. That moment is the hush of transfer. It is the breath between earth and heaven. It is the silence between preparation and reception. It is the pause between the last step of the wilderness and the first joy of the king's chamber. And beloved, this is why the bride does not enter the heavenly room with panic. She enters with wonder. She enters with awe. She enters with the stillness of one who knows that God has done what no human hand could do. Behind her is the world that could no longer define her. Before her is the chamber that heaven prepared for her. Around her is the veil of glory. Near her are the children of the exile. Above her is the joy of the heavenly family. And within her is oil already burning. So the hush of transfer becomes the first note of the stillness behind the veil. The chamber is quiet because heaven has received her. The veil is radiant because glory surrounds her. The bride is still because the king has brought her in. And from that moment forward, she is no longer waiting as one who hopes to enter. She is waiting as one who has entered. The joy that does not need noise. Now we need to understand something very beautiful. Behind the veil, joy does not always sound like shouting. Sometimes joy becomes quiet. Sometimes joy becomes reverent. Sometimes joy becomes so full that it does not need to prove itself with noise. This is very important because on earth we often associate joy with movement, sound, celebration, music, and outward expression. and those things can be holy. Heaven is not without praise. Heaven is not without song. Heaven is not without worship. Heaven is not without the sound of glory. But there is also a kind of joy that becomes still because the presence is near. There is a kind of joy that becomes quiet because the moment is sacred. There is a kind of joy that does not rush because it knows the appointed hour is already held in the hand of God. This is the joy behind the veil. It is not sadness. It is not fear. It is not emptiness. It is not delayed with disappointment. It is the joy of arrival, the joy of being received. The joy of knowing that exile has given way to nearness. The joy of knowing that the bride is no longer outside the king's house. The joy of knowing that the children of the exile are no longer scattered far from the mystery, but gathered near the chamber of holy celebration. This is a joy that has passed through longing. It is a joy that remembers the wilderness, but is no longer ruled by it. It is a joy that remembers the tears, but is no longer drowning in them. It is a joy that remembers the waiting, but no longer waits as one abandoned. It is a joy that has crossed the threshold. And this is why the stillness behind the veil is not heavy. It is full. It is full of remembrance, full of gratitude, full of honor, full of the awareness that God has done what only God could do. The bride did not bring herself into the chamber. The bride did not open heaven by her own strength. The bride did not transform herself into her restored nature. The bride did not gather the children of the exile by human power. The king brought her near. The king received her. The king guarded her. The king appointed the hour. So behind the veil, joy becomes worship. Not the worship of striving, not the worship of trying to become worthy by noise, but the worship of one who has been brought in by mercy. The bride is still because she knows she has been received. She is quiet because wonder has filled the room. She is peaceful because the king is near. And the children of the exile are near her, not as wanderers in sorrow, but as gathered ones in the house of joy. This is the joy that does not need noise, the joy of the veil, the joy of the chamber, the joy of the appointed hour drawing near. And this kind of joy teaches us something even now. Not every holy moment needs to be rushed. Not every blessing needs to be explained immediately. Not every sacred thing needs to be announced before its time. There are moments when joy is safest in reverence. There are moments when the most beautiful worship is simply remaining before the Lord without demanding the next movement. There are moments when the bride does not need to speak much because her presence in the chamber already testifies that the king has fulfilled his promise. That is the joy behind the veil. Quiet but full, still but alive, hidden from the outer noise, but radiant before the king. Let's talk about the attendants of joy and the children of the exile. Now we must look more deeply at those gathered around the bride, because behind the veil, the bride is not alone. There are attendants of joy, there are companions, there are those who have walked through exile and now stand near the mystery of fulfillment. There are those who do not replace the bride, but rejoice with her. This distinction is very important. The children of the exile are not the bride herself. They are not the central one being presented to the bridegroom. They are attendants, witnesses, companions, and rejoicing ones. They are like the bridal company gathered near the chamber, those who understand that an appointed hour has come. And this gives the heavenly chamber a family atmosphere. It is not a courtroom of fear. It is not a wilderness of isolation. It is not a place of uncertainty. It is a house, a royal house, a heavenly house, a family house, a place where the long exile begins to give way to belonging. This is why the children of the exile matter so much in this teaching. They carry the memory of separation, the memory of longing, the memory of waiting, the memory of distance. But now they are not outside the story. They are gathered near the bride as attendants of joy. Their presence shows that the king not only remembers the bride, he remembers the children connected to the mystery. He remembers those who waited. He remembers those who cried. He remembers those who felt far from home. He remembers those who were scattered. He remembers those who longed for the house of God. And now, behind the veil, they are gathered into nearness. This is not yet the public marriage supper. This is not the fullness after the war. This is not the kingdom manifestation before all the earth. This is the inner family gathering before the appointed ceremony. It is intimate. It is holy. It is filled with recognition. It is the kind of moment where heaven knows what earth has not yet understood. And this is why the stillness is so deep. Because the gathered ones are not merely waiting for an event. They are standing inside the answer to generations of longing. The bride's nearness is not isolated from the story of the children. Her joy carries the echo of their restoration. Her entrance carries the sign that exile is being answered. Her stillness carries the weight of a family being gathered before the king. And this is where the heavenly family becomes important. The bride is not entering a lonely chamber. She is entering the order of the king's house. She is surrounded by heavenly family, by attendants, by those who understand the holiness of the moment. And this shows us that the wedding mystery is not only romance. It is a household. It is an inheritance. It is family. It is an order. It is the restoration of belonging. This is why the stillness behind the veil is not cold. It is warm with recognition. It is full of those who have been brought near. It is full of eyes that know the hour is sacred. It is full of hearts that do not want to interrupt what heaven is preparing. The attendants are not restless. The children of the exile are not confused. The heavenly family is not anxious. The chamber is not ruled by panic. Everyone waits under holy order because the king's timing is perfect. And this is very different from earthly waiting. On earth, people often wait with questions. Behind the veil, the gathered ones wait with expectation. On earth, people often wait, wondering if the promise will come. Behind the veil, they wait because the promise has already drawn near. On earth, people often wait through distance. Behind the veil, they wait in nearness. This is the stillness of the children of the exile. Not sorrowful exile anymore, not wandering without a home anymore, but gathered nearness before the wedding. There is a chamber filled with light. Now we must look at the atmosphere of the chamber itself, because behind the veil, the chamber is not dark. It is filled with light. The bride is not waiting in emptiness. She is waiting in radiance. The attendants are not gathered in gloom. They are gathered in the brightness of the king's house. The children of the exile are not standing in the shadow of rejection. They are standing in the light of remembrance. This is why we must not imagine the stillness behind the veil as something lifeless. The stillness is full of light. The lamps are burning. The gold is shining. The veil is radiant. The presence is near. The chamber carries the glow of sacred joy. And this light is not only a decoration, it is a witness. The light witnesses that the bride has entered a different order. The light witnesses that heaven has received what earth could not fully recognize. The light witnesses that the king's house is not ruled by the darkness outside. The light witnesses that the bride is not being kept in fear, but in glory. This is why the oil matters again. The oil is not just a symbol of preparation now. The oil becomes visible as light. The oil that was guarded in the long night now burns in the chamber. The oil that could not be borrowed now shines as evidence of readiness. The oil that was formed in relationship now becomes part of the atmosphere of heaven. So the bride's lamp is not merely personal. It becomes part of the chamber's witness. Her readiness adds to the light. Her obedience adds to the beauty. Her stillness adds to the peace. Her presence behind the veil becomes part of the holy order around the appointed moment. Beloved, this is very beautiful, because it means nothing formed in the bride was wasted. The quiet obedience was not wasted. The oil was not wasted. The waiting was not wasted. The stillness was not wasted. The surrender was not wasted. The tears were not wasted. The hidden faithfulness was not wasted. Everything that was formed in the wilderness becomes light in the chamber. Everything that was guarded in the night becomes radiance behind the veil. Everything that looked unseen on earth becomes recognized in heaven. And this gives the bride peace. She no longer has to explain the process. The light speaks. She does not have to prove that the oil was real. The lamp speaks. She does not have to defend the preparation. The chamber speaks. Heaven recognizes what heaven formed. And this is why the bride can still be. Because behind the veil, she is no longer trying to convince the outside world of what God has done. She is standing in the place where God's work is already recognized. The chamber filled with light is the answer to the hidden years. The chamber filled with light is the answer to the guarded oil. The chamber filled with old light is the answer to the bride's long preparation. The world may not yet understand. The nations may still be shaking, the earth may still be moving through judgment and conflict, but behind the veil, the light already testifies. The bride has been received, the oil is burning, the chamber is full, the appointed moment is near. Let's talk about the pause before movement. Now we come to another layer of stillness. Stillness behind the veil is not the end of movement, it is the pause before movement. This is a very important distinction. The bride is not behind the veil forever. The chamber is not the final manifestation. The hush is not the end of the story. The stillness is holy because it comes before the next command. There is a moment when heaven gathers. There is a moment when heaven waits. There is a moment when heaven becomes quiet. There is a moment when every movement comes under the timing of the king. And then, at the appointed time, the next movement begins. But the bride does not initiate that movement by impatience. The bride does not tear the veil. The bride does not announce herself before the king presents her. The bride does not confuse readiness with self-display. She waits. She rests. She remains. Because the next movement belongs to the king. This is part of the wisdom behind the veil. The bride knows how to be still before she knows how to move. She knows how to wait before she knows how to be brought forth. She knows how to remain before she knows how to appear. And this is why heaven can trust her with unveiling, because she does not force it. She does not make the sacred common by rushing it. She does not let the pressure outside determine the timing inside. She is under a holy order. The pause before movement protects the ceremony. It protects the joy. It protects the sacredness of the appointed hour. It protects the bride from premature exposure. It protects the chamber from becoming a place of human striving. And this also teaches us something about the heart of God. God is never late. God is never confused. God does not rush because the earth is shouting. God does not unveil because the world demands proof. God moves when the appointed time has arrived. And behind the veil, everyone waits under that order. The bride waits. The attendants wait. The children of the exile wait. The heavenly family waits. Not because they are uncertain, because they are reverent. They know the next movement is holy. They know the king's timing is perfect. They know the moment cannot be manufactured. This is the pause before movement, the stillness before the ceremony, the hush before the unveiling, the breath before the procession, the quiet before the joy becomes visible. And that quiet is not empty. It is full of the next thing God is about to do. The bride does not lose herself in waiting. Now, there is one more tender layer we need to speak about. Behind the veil, the bride waits, but she does not lose herself in waiting. She is not diminished by waiting. She is not erased by stillness. She is not made less because the appointed moment has not yet unfolded. This is important because on earth, waiting can sometimes make people feel invisible. Waiting can make people feel forgotten. Waiting can make people feel as though their identity is suspended until something public happens. But behind the veil, waiting does not erase identity. It confirms it. The bride is already the bride behind the veil. She does not become the bride only when others see her. She does not become the bride only when the ceremony becomes visible. She does not become the bride only when the world recognizes the mystery. She is already known in the king's house. She is already received. She is already adorned. She is already surrounded by glory. She is already held in the atmosphere of the appointed union. This is why stillness behind the veil is not insecurity. It is identity at rest. The bride does not need the outer world to name her. The king has already received her. The bride does not need the nations to understand her. Heaven has already recognized her. The bride does not need to explain her place. She stands where the king has placed her. This is a powerful word, because anything that depends solely on public recognition remains vulnerable to the outside world. But what is established behind the veil is established before God. The bride's identity is not waiting for the outer court to approve it. Her identity is held in the king's nearness. This is why she can still be. She is not trying to become visible so she can become real. She is real because the king knows her. She is honored because the king has brought her near. She is radiant because the glory surrounds her. She is secure because heaven has received her. And this is why the bride's stillness is full of dignity. She does not shrink in the hush. She does not disappear in the chamber. She does not become less because the veil remains. She becomes more settled, more peaceful, more fully herself, more aligned with the order of the king's house. Because the stillness behind the veil is not taking away her identity, it is protecting her identity until the appointed unveiling. Now we can gather this part together. The stillness behind the veil is not the conclusion of the bride's story. It is readiness for the next door. The bride has entered. The oil is burning. The heavenly family is gathered. The children of the exile are near. The chamber is full of light. The joy is reverent. The silence is holy. The veil is radiant. And all of this prepares the next movement. But the next movement does not come from striving. It comes from order. It comes from timing. It comes from the king. This is why the bride's final posture behind the veil is trust. She trusts the chamber. She trusts the veil. She trusts the silence. She trusts the joy. She trusts the order. She trusts the king. She knows she has not been brought this far to be forgotten. She knows she has not been received into glory to be abandoned. She knows the oil was not preserved for nothing. She knows the heavenly gathering is not without purpose. She knows the children of the exile are not present by accident. She knows the veil is not the end. It is the boundary before the next unveiling. And so she waits, not in fear, not in striving, not in confusion, not in sorrow. She waits in glory. She waits in fullness. She waits in holy order. She waits as one who has already been received. And this is the beauty of the stillness behind the veil. It is not the old waiting of the exile. It is not the old waiting of the wilderness. It is not the old waiting of uncertainty. It is the waiting of one who has arrived before the appointed moment has fully opened. It is the waiting of one held in joy before the ceremony begins. It is the waiting of one surrounded by light before the next door opens. So, beloved, when we speak of the bride behind the veil, we are not speaking of emptiness. We are speaking of fullness under holy order. We are speaking of the holy hush before the wedding. We are speaking of oil already burning. We are speaking of the children of the exile gathered near. We are speaking of the heavenly family in reverent joy. We are speaking of the bride, no longer striving to enter because she has entered. And we are speaking of the king's perfect timing. The one who brought her behind the veil also knows when to open the next door. The one who filled the chamber with light also knows when to let that light move. The one who gathered the family also knows when the ceremony must begin. So the bride waits behind the veil, not because heaven is delaying her without purpose, but because holy things unfold in holy order. And in that stillness, she is not empty. She is full. She is not forgotten. She is received. She is not alone. She is surrounded. She is not striving. She is resting. She is not outside. She is home. Beloved, we will stop the teaching here behind the veil in the holy hush of heaven. Today, we did not return to the wilderness, nor did we repeat the golden veil as a boundary. We entered the atmosphere after the transfer, where the bride is no longer striving to enter, having already entered. We saw the hush of transfer, the stillness after arrival, the oil already burning, the children of the exile gathered near, the heavenly family surrounding the chamber, and the bride waiting in glory before the appointed wedding ceremony. And we must close here, because the wedding itself is a sacred mystery we have already approached in other teachings. We do not need to repeat it today. But there is another question that now begins to open. While heaven is filled with this holy stillness, while the bride is behind the veil, while the chamber is full of joy and sacred order, what is happening on earth during this celebration in heaven? Because heaven may be preparing the wedding, the earth will enter another kind of hour. An hour of shaking, an hour of judgment, an hour of witness, an hour of final invitation. And this is where the next arc may begin, not by repeating the wedding ceremony, but by looking at the earth side of the mystery, what happens below while the bride has already been received above. So we stop here in peace. The bride is behind the veil, the oil is burning, the heavenly family is gathered, the children of the exile are near. The chamber is full of light, and the bride waits in glory, not because she is uncertain, but because heaven moves by holy order. I love you all so much. Thank you for studying with me. Thank you for walking carefully through this mystery, and I will see you in the next video.